Bartenders have read it. What's that one fucked up story you can't stop thinking? Busy. Full bar. 10 p.m. and picking up. Girl walks up to an open spot at the bar. Obviously just arrived and carded by security. Puts her ID away and gets out her credit card. She orders a pitcher of the cheapest beer I have, does not care what it is. Does not want a tab. Just pays and tips. I ask her how many glasses she wants. She says none. Weird, she just got here. So I know she does not have glassware yet. Is she just going to drink from the pitcher? Got my answer pretty quickly. She calmly put her purse back together and over her shoulder. Picked up the pitcher. Walked behind a male-female couple sitting about 10 feet down the bar. And poured the entire pitcher of cheap beer on the man's head. Called him a cheating asshole and walked out. Calm, composed, and savage. I used to bartend at a wedding venue, and during the reception of an afternoon wedding the groom kept coming up and buying rounds of drinks. But never with the bride. He was tipping appropriately. But as he got drunker he was being more and more generous, telling me to keep the changes he paid with 50s bucks and eventually 100s bucks. Come to find out he was grabbing cash out of cards. I eventually cut him off, but I have to imagine he kept getting fed drinks. As he was carried out, I finally got my first glimpse of the very pregnant and equally upset bride. I offered to give her back the close to 500 bucks I had been tipped by him alone. But she very graciously told me to keep it and said not to worry about it. And he is going to pay for it for a long, long time. Sunday closing shift. Huge family party is the last table in the place. 2 servers and me. They bring the bill and whoever organized the dinner apparently drops on the family. Bet they are all going Dutch. It begins as an argument about money and turns into a brawl. We were a seafood restaurant bar and someone took a plastic fish off the wall and used it as a weapon. They finally paid the bill with like 8 cards. Luckily it was an automatic tip on the bill. One night during a graveyard shift at a dive bar. This guy walks in. He was well dressed and sober. Not the type I normally got at 2 in the morning. I fixed his drink and opened his tab, but instead of going back to my book I just watched him, thinking about what his story could be. 2 drinks later he told me he had a fight with his fiancée one night and she stormed out. She got into a car accident and died. It was the first anniversary of her death and he was scared to be alone that night. So he came to me. I said fuck it and we proceeded to get hammered on my boss dime. Don't feel bad. I'm fairly sure it was a front for money laundering. When my shift ended I poured him into a cab and sent him home. 2 days later I got to work and there was an envelope with my name on it. He wrote me a beautiful thank you note and included 500 bucks in cash. I had a woman come in all flirty, but talking about the rich married doctor she is dating. Early afternoon, so only one in the bar for about 30 minutes. Talked the whole time. She was cute. After 30 minutes a couple comes in and while I am getting their order and talking to them she starts calling me back over. I told her to hang on a minute and she gets up and starts walking to the bathroom with her drink. It was the second one I would given her and it was full, but she suddenly was walking like she was overserved. I let my manager know to keep an eye out for her BC she might be drunk. About 30 minutes later I realized she was not back and asked someone to check on her in the bathroom. She had broken her glass and slit her wrists. We called 911 and they were able to save her. When they wheeled her out on the stretcher I was giving the police a statement and they wheeled her right past me. She looked me right in the eyes and just shrugged. Messed me up for about a month. Woman storms in to find her boyfriend sharing an intimate drink with the woman he is obviously cheating on her with. After loudly chewing him out for a couple of minutes, she finishes with the killer line, addressed at the woman, "Next time you are sucking his cock, remember it's been up my arse." I honestly had to restrain myself from breaking into applause. I was a tour guide at a distillery. After the tour, I would go back to bartending. One guy on my tour came up to the bar and immediately said, "I can tell you are on the spectrum because I also have autism." Very casually. I have never been tested for it and my doctors have never even hinted about it. That was like a year ago and I still think about it. I was not offended and I understand autism. It was just shocking. I used to bartend in the financial district of San Francisco. We would occasionally get some high roller clients, including celebrities. One night, a voice says, "You got gin and tonics back there." I look up and see Jack Nicholson wearing sunglasses near midnight, and my jaw drops. He leans in and says, "Well, son, are you gonna make me one or do I need to go back there and make it myself?" I made the fastest gin tonic of my life and said, "Here you go, sir." To which he replied simply with a double eyebrow raise. In the end, The other older guy picked up the tab and tipped me $300 on a $40 tab. Work closing bar shift most nights. Refused to serve one of my regulars one day cause he looked pale and yellowish. I was genuinely concerned I would be serving his last drink. Long story short, he died a few days later. I have bartended part-time for years. I had a server who had gotten off after the kitchen closed and had a few too many shift drinks. After the bar closed, she said that she was going to go into the kitchen to make something to eat. No big deal. We do this all of the time. After a few minutes I hear screaming and dashed to the kitchen. She had knelt down to turn on one of the fryers, and in her drunken stupor, had instead turned the valve to drain the oil from the fryer. It proceeded to shoot out at her, covering her and the kitchen floor in used fryer oil. She had tried to turn it off, but slipped. So by the time I got to the kitchen, she was swimming in a pool of oil. Thankfully it was cold or it would have been really bad. We made her climb into the dish pit, as the drain as a grease trap, and sprayed her off the best we could. We then wrapped her like a mummy in bar rags, and threw her into one of the security guard's cars for him to take her home. She still ruined the passenger seat of his car. It was awesome having to clean all of that up at like 3 a.m. after a super busy bar shift. Guy came in, shit himself. We had to drive him home. Came in the next day. No one would serve him. He left. Bartender for many years. I have seen all the usual stuff. Sex in the bathroom. Vomit all over the dance floor. Fighting. But the story that sticks with me, and the one I retell the most, is about a girl who got absolutely puke drunk and ends up in the bathroom, sitting on the floor with her pants around her ankles. I call a cab. This was back in the day. And when it finally arrived, I am trying to get this chick off the floor and get her pants up, along with help from a friend of hers. She says just need another minute to get some water, and proceeds to use her hand as a ladle for toilet water. I started laughing so hard while still trying to get her to stop, and she came in the next Tuesday and looked me in the eye like nothing happened. Irish. Working in an Irish bar in Europe. Super stereotypical boozed-up English stag to make the bar their base for a few days. Obnoxious. Loudish. Boorish each time they came in. Deserved to have been kicked out, but the manager forbid it as they were spending loads. Each night they would act like pricks, then head off to the red light district. After 3 days of this, with a smattering of NTE Irish comments, they are again leaving to inflict themselves on some other poor soul. They are gathering their stuff. The stag come out of the toilet, leans in and tells the group something. They are raucous, laughing and delighted with what he has told them, and storm off to the toilet en masse, come out pissing themselves and eventually leave. Myself and a colleague have to go in to see what they have done. The guy had taken a shit, the kind of shit you do after 3 days of heavy drinking. Each time he has wiped his arse, he had stuck the toilet paper to the wall. He would practically wallpapered one side of the cubicle. Hours were spent trying to get the place back to normal. Horrendous. Next day they rocked back up to the bar expecting to be served. Were shocked that they were not let in, as if the 800 years were not bad enough. One place I worked had a massive high top with one side against the wall with a bench and another facing the front window. I had a clear line of sight from the bar and saw a woman very casually get under the table and give her men head. I left, and by the time the manager went over, she had mounted him right then and there with a full restaurant. Another busy spot I worked at turned into a big college bar late night with dancing and such. There was a massive brawl and a lot of broken glass, yet the manager refused to shut down that floor to clean. 30 minutes later, a girl slips while dancing and cuts her femoral artery on a broken glass on the ground. My coworker was a veteran and saved her life by sticking his hand in her leg and pinching the artery. Had he not done that, she surely would have died. Insane amount of blood. I have ever seen anything like it. Sure enough, the manager closed after that, and then the bar got sued by the girl and won. Guy was on a Tinder date at my bar. The girl was actually a high school classmate of his. They had not spoken in years, but they knew each other. After 2 hours of drinks and food, he went to the bathroom, leaving his phone, wallet, keys in his jacket pocket draped over the chair. She immediately found them and booked it out the door. She then stole his BMW and went on a shopping spree. And the schmuck at the bar, he lamented for an hour that it must have been an emergency. She is going to come back before I forced him to call the cops and file a report, because at that point, he could not pay his $200 tab either. I often think about him 5 years later. Not really fucked up, but I think about it a lot. It was the afternoon shift, so only one bartender and one cook working. I am behind the bar and a man comes in. He says he does not have any money and if I could spot him a coffee. I am young, 18 at the time, I refused and he left. A few weeks later, I dropped a CD while driving and reached down to pick it up. Well, I came up on a curve and ended up in the ditch. My car's front end is in the ditch and trunk is in the road. A car stops and the man who came in for coffee gets out. He says, "We better get this car out of the ditch before a cop sees you." He proceeds to get the car out of the ditch and facing the right way. I don't know, but to me that was God teaching me a big lesson that day. It does not take much to be kind to those in need. Thanks for watching. Share your story in a comment.